For 10,000 years, the Emperor's Inquisition have fought a secret war to defend humanity. We keep vigil in the darkness. We hunt among the shadows. We pass judgment upon the mutant, the traitor, and the heretic. We purge the world of the taint lurking among the stars. We are Inquisitors. We shall fear nothing. For we are what you fear.
Yeah, it's PC only. It was on sale for like 75%. Ridiculous. Yeah, it's a Warhammer. I have to choose it right now? This game's actually been out for, I'm gonna say 3 years. Expansion came out this year, last year. It's 40K. I love 40K. You are the judges and the executioners. The gripping artists of the
Inquisitor's log. Classified report for later transmission. I am closing on the source of the inquisitorial distress signal I was assigned to investigate. It has an ancient encryption used by the Holy Orders. It's authentic, but extremely old. The intensity of the Caligari warp searches is beyond anything I've experienced. There were many delays during the journey, but the coordinates I received from the Caligari Conclave finally led me to this desolate system. The signal is coming from a battered fortress monastery. It got through the warp surges with considerable loss of data, and my astropath has been unable to decipher it. I will personally investigate the source of this mysterious signal.
Inquisitor, this is your captain speaking. I'm still trying to hail the monastery, but I get no response.
The hull looks intact, though. I think it was simply abandoned a very long time ago.
Then what do you expect to find over there?
Something that once belonged to the Inquisition. And lots of empty halls.
Sounds exciting. I've instructed your pilots to land on the hangar deck.
Stand by and wait for my signal.
I remember the driving roar of the torch. Imperial barrier carriers through the fires. In your deck. I'm spooked.
So, I have another question about your corner of the internet, Jim. If I'm trying to get up to speed on all this blood sports shit and the fun streams, because it does have kind of like a more argumentative O&A vibe to it, where it's just making fun of each other, which we're all fans of that show. We like it a lot. I think it's influenced a lot of online shows. Where do I start? Because it seems like there's fucking 500 channels doing it and so many characters, quote unquote, to follow. Like, where should I go?
Well, I mean, if you're looking for more like the O&A vibe, like a kind of a Jocktober thing, I'd say go with Morning Kumite, which is pretty good. I mean, he does it, a morning from like maybe 10 to 1 o'clock, somewhere in there. So it's about a 3-hour chunk, 5 days a week. And it's got a nice little vibe to it. It's more laid back. There's a lot of stuff. But I mean, there are a lot of clips.
Captain,
channels, so
do you copy?
I get it. Not everybody's got time to invest.
Captain Van Winter, can you hear me?
Way too long, so,
Strange.
Gives you a
Vox
basic
communication
idea of
is
what's going on,
jammed.
because It's hard to digest that much stuff. So a
That's
20-minute
bad.
section,
Oh, no.
20-minute section makes it much easier to kind of enjoy it. That would be my recommendation. But yeah, they've done pretty well for
log.
themselves. I mean,
New
when
entry.
Worski had
While
his
attempting to
big
dock in the
debate, I think
hangar
it
of an
was
unknown
Richard
fortress
Spencer and
monastery,
Sargon of Akkad,
my transport
I
took
think he
heavy
made,
fire.
going on
I
Super
suspect
Chats,
that
probably
the
around 10 to
automatic weapon
15,000
systems
bucks
were
that night.
activated, but
Like,
I
I mean,
didn't
there's-
know why.
There's an
The
audience
transport
for
has
that
been
crap.
destroyed,
You
along
know,
with
even
my
Morning
equipment.
Kumite, it's pulling like 2,000 or 3,000 viewers, and
Mindless
you know, I'd say
Open
maybe
the
they're making 20 to 30,000. So I'm expecting more of these to kind of pop up because people like Jerry Springer, and then the people that host this stuff like making money. So it's kind of like a perfect combination. I just want a nice shit show to watch. I just want to watch people scream at each other, and I'm happy. I'm content with that. So, yeah, I'd recommend Morning Kumite, or
an
I'd
ancient
recommend
cogitator.
Chronos if you want the small clips.
Do you ever do videos? Maybe you have. I haven't seen them.
No,
Where you
just
actually
as I
get into your real
suspected.
beliefs on shit, or are you pretty staunchly in the I just want to watch a shit show
New
and
log
laugh
entry.
at idiots camp?
Bodies everywhere.
I have
the putrid
on a few
stench
beliefs.
of death.
You know, I don't like
What have we got
kind
here?
of like the
weapon.
sanitization,
Well, the
I guess
Emperor
you could
does
say,
protect his
online that
loyal
we
subjects.
kind of see play out everywhere, where it seems to get more and more restrictive on what you can say and how you can interact. You know, terms of service get upgraded. I mean, look at YouTube. Content creators here are kind of walking on eggshells when they make certain videos at this point. I mean, Twitch has gotten to the point where I know certain streamers are scared to have a Twitter account anymore or a Facebook account because something they say there can get them banned on Twitch now.
Holy crap.
So I'm against that. I don't like that. And obviously I don't like pedophiles. I think is a safe one to say. I don't think anybody else is going to
Really sticking your neck out there.
really sticking my neck out there. But I mostly use the internet for what I always have used it for, which is just laughing at dumb shit and trying to get some entertainment. That's about it.
I have a question, and I don't know if you can answer it quickly, but I don't understand Gamergate. I have no idea. I don't get it. It's
A manifestation of
explain to me,
chaos.
What are you, like one of the originators of Gamergate? What's Gamergate?
If I had to sum it up and give you like the short and dirty of it,
I feel the
I'd say maybe
contagion
for
of
like 2
chaos
years
seeping
before
into
that,
the
right?
feel
walls.
the
Or
I
Gamergate
taste the
became a
despair
thing.
in the air.
You had a lot of outlets writing
This
kind of
illness
articles
must
that
be
were shitting on their
purged
audience.
before it's too
Gamers are
late.
terrible. Gamers are toxic. Trolls are terrible. Nobody can play games anymore. We need more restrictions. We need more. I mean, look at like, where Overwatch is now, where you make a joke and you're banned. You do something they don't like and you're banned. Anything even outside the game. I mean, Overwatch has a thing built in at this point where they're looking for content. So you're not even getting reported anymore. They have things that look for content on YouTube, and if they find something with your, handle on it, you're banned. And so, it was really negative attitude towards what a gamer was or what people in gaming were like. And then Gamergate kind of comes around, it comes to a head where you've got an indie game dev who's friends with people in the industry and who's friends with different people at different news outlets like Kotaku,
New
like
log
Nathan
entry.
Grayson and stuff like that.
I've found a room
And you start to see
tainted
this
by the
really
filth
weird kind of
chaos.
interaction behind
There
the
is
scenes where they're all
also a
buddies and
tech
they're all,
priest maintenance
have these
shrine
relationships,
with a
dating
functioning
relationships.
cogitator.
And they're kind of covering each other's back, and it just was really screwed up, and that kind of kickstarted it. And then about a week or two after that, I think it was about 13 different outlets all released articles within an hour of each other that said gamers are dead, gamers don't exist anymore, we don't care about gamers, we don't need you anymore. And it made that initial feeling of, wow, they kind of seem slimy. It's like they have a kind of a backroom deal with each other to promote each other, and it's not really about is it a good game or not. It's about who you know in the industry. And then all these articles come out, and they're all saying
I
the same
found
thing.
new
And it was just
information.
really
There's an
shitty. I
emergency
mean, I was in
cogitator
that for about,
nearby where I
I'd say,
could
like
turn
3
off the
months.
jamming signals.
And then I felt it got a little too retarded, and I
Open the door.
It is
I
in the
walked away. I
walls
ducked
now,
out. Yeah.
everywhere.
Okay.
Mighty
If you were to poll the room of people that were in that, or paying
Mindless
attention,
servitors
you're going to get
muttering
100
gibberish. I smell corruption.
You've got demographics from all over the internet. You had
Mind the
Reddit, you
door.
had Tumblr, you had
Yes.
4chan, you had YouTubers, you had Let's Players.
Cool.
They all had different reasons for being attracted to it or being interested in it.
Yeah, I think
Bring
that's
him
something.
down.
Foul heretics!
Well, yeah,
My
I-
powers
there-
cleanse you
there
from
was a
your
good-
sin.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a good portion of it that was related to, social justice or the PC culture, because a lot of the articles getting pushed, talking about how gamers are shit, seemed to kind of really hone in on the fact that if you were a white guy or a straight white guy that played games, you were the devil, was kind of the approach they took. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Anything I say about it is going to piss off a group of people. If I give one opinion one way, the people that were in it are going to hate me, and if I give you an opinion the other way, the people that were against it are going to hate me. There's no good answer I can give you that's not going to get me a metric ton of shit.
Oh, I don't think you mind the shit though. I think
I was
you have a
gonna
little
say,
bit of
yeah.
fun waiting around in it, right?
Yeah, I actually. Well, there is a breaking point. I mean, right now I'm involved. Like I said, it went from Fake Elastic calling him a sellout to having the Pentagon involved. So I've got that show going on. I've got a bunch of MRAs that are really angry at me right now, so I've got that going on. I've got
no, not MRAs.
I know.
That's a dozen of
Finally.
people.
I know, a whole 14 of them. I've got a group of bronies that are angry at me because they had
not them.
they had a
Oh.
group.
I couldn't turn off
Yeah,
the
there was
teleportation
Some
jammer.
bizarre Skype call got released. Of this guy
Inquisitor,
admitting to
finally.
trying to
I
have
thought
sex
we'd
with a
lost you.
12-year-old.
It would have been.
And
Trust
like,
me,
yeah,
I'm
so
on your
I-
side.
Circle.
I'm not
I-
saying I
full
don't
circle,
want my
like I
ship
said,
back.
so, I mean,
Your
there's so
loyalty
much
is
shit
quite-
going on. But I don't really have a great answer for you on what Gamergate was, other than a reaction from the consumer against what they saw as kind of like an intermediary or an unnecessary cog. Like, you know, it used to feel like if you were a gamer, there were the companies, right? The guys that made the video games, and you may shit talk a game, and the company that makes it may think you're an idiot for doing so. But it was kind of that back and forth rapport. But somewhere along the lines, the media got
Those
kind of in
times
the
are
middle of
bad.
that and started telling developers what gamers thought and started telling gamers what developers thought, and that connection was lost. That interference kind of started to play a part. And I think it was a good pushback against that as well. That'd be I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling now. I feel
Oh,
like
no,
I'm
you're
curious
good.
about this. So
Got-
you seem to be in the middle of some real stuff. You're dox proof, I suppose. No one knows your name or where you
What?
live. You're just on my screen a black box where
Okay.
people can't.
Journal.
Well,
goal,
thanks for
social
putting the
card.
bullseye on me.
Yeah,
That's nice.
it's a
Every time you
service I
say
offer.
something like you're dox proof, it's basically, hey, come fuck with this guy.
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
I'm
you
telling.
don't want to say it like that.
If you, one thing I've learned, and Anthony.
So
Cumia
tell
has
me, Jim,
learned-
you were saying earlier that you're completely untouchable. And nobody
that you're an
No, no.
invincible god of the internet.
That's
you know?
like
God,
if you make an audience out of like poking at people, the audience will poke at you. Expect that,
Oh my God, yeah.
right?
Oh, no,
you
that-
know, Anthony
nothing's true
Cumia
with
is like, you know, it's shocking. All the people that watch us are terrible fans, and it's like, right? You're looking in the mirror, you know, and so are we. Like, our fan base pokes at me every day, and it's for the memes. It's what you get. That's where you are.
Yeah, you don't want to play with fire if you're afraid of getting burned, obviously. I mean, yeah, I know what I'm appealing to, and I know the kind of content I like to make. And the stuff I like to laugh at is always going to bring kind of with it a backlash. But I've been doing this shit for a while. I mean, if you go look up North American, a school shooter North American Tour 2012 was a mod we made for Half-Life as a joke. That's listed in a Supreme Court decision. So, I've been fucking around on the internet for a while, doing stuff that draws attention.
That was the one where at the end of the game you had to commit suicide before the cops got you, right?
That's correct. That's
Thought
correct.
so. I'm a bit of a completionist. 1,000 gamer score on that one.
But so you do something goofy, it gets a reaction. You're gonna obviously get some pushback on that. But I think at the end of the day, the people that watch the videos more so do it because they just find the shit weird, right? Even the Deviants videos that I did where I was looking at weird subgroups and fetish groups, I had people in those communities sending me emails and fan art saying, yeah, they're goofy fuckers. We think it's funny too. So yeah, it's one of those things. I think everybody likes to laugh at shit.
Yeah.
You
That
just.
Loggers have picked up a Vox signal not far from your location. It is transmitting on an Imperial channel. It could be important.
I'm on my way there.
Half in the bag. Well, we're back from the movie theater.
Sure are.
Just saw Pixels. Yep, that's right.
Heretic.
Jay, forgot to stop at the bank.
Oh shit, I completely forgot.
It's okay. I don't think these guys have any intention of paying us anyways. Listen, I have a plan. They have a safe in the back, and I'm pretty sure it's filled with cash. When we get a chance, we're gonna go back there, and I'm gonna pick the lock and break into it. we're just gonna fucking take all their money. If these fuckers won't pay
So
us.
guys, Jay, Mike, what did you think of Pixels?
Oh, but let's discuss Pixels.
We're gonna talk about that now, huh? Okay.
Why are you looking around awkwardly?
Do you have a safe?
Of course we do. For all of our daily large cash that we handle, a lot of cash that we handle here, keeping the safe in the back. Why? That's a weird question.
Well, I saw it back there, and I was wondering what the combination was.
Well, the combination is 35, 22. What? I was waiting for you to stop me.
Oh no!
I was waiting.
That's funny. Yeah, you can keep going.
I like just giving it to.
Was that a 20, 25, a 22, the second number? Maybe if I get the first two.
You want to do that where I just do the whole thing then?
Yeah. Just, I mean, like, we're all friends here.
I mean, you guys have been working at the store. You should know the combination to the safe to make all the cash.
Well, yeah, you never gave it to us,
Yeah.
and nobody actually came into the store, But I saw a safe, and I maybe Al Capone put his stuff in there. What's the number?
Cool.
In 1982, NASA launched a time capsule into space containing examples of our life and culture in hopes of contacting extraterrestrial life. Unfortunately, the message was taken the wrong way.
Well, I'm glad we all went to the movies together. I hope our time here together doesn't end in horrific violence.
What is Pixels about?
Pixels is the new Adam Sandler comedy. Adam Sandler film.
Starring Adam Sandler.
And Kevin James and some lady and Peter Dinklage.
Her name's Michelle Moynihan.
Michelle Moynihan and Josh Gad. And everyone phones in their performance except for Brian Cox, who somehow is a professional still.
Beyond just not being familiar with Adam Sandler movies, I mean, this is actually my very first Adam Sandler vehicle.
That's amazing.
And he's the worst part of the movie.
He looks visibly miserable in this movie.
Yeah. I'm just sorry.
He looks like he just walked out of his trailer and he just wants to get back to his trailer. So he's like, all right, here's the line, and okay, bye.
If you were going to take this movie like seriously, I mean, you would want a likable, relatable main character. I mean, you would want like Chris Pratt. He'd probably be great in that role, but instead, he's just the most unlikable, uncharismatic man who has ever lived.
Yeah, this movie's terrible. The script is terrible. This is Hollywood, big Hollywood money exploiting the resurgence of 80s pop culture interest, and it's just, I don't know. Would you call it sickening or depressing?
I would call it cynical, definitely. Yeah. This definitely cemented for me, like, and I've been thinking about this more and more over the last couple of years, but this cemented, like, I am completely over the celebration of nostalgia. Like, this is just like the most soulless thing
on this ship.
And it's like, remember Donkey Kong? Here's Donkey Kong, and there's nothing clever about it.
If you really wanted to go for like the 80s nostalgia, it's like the whole opening of that movie was actually kind of charming with the kids going to the arcade and enjoying themselves.
Once the Cheap Trick song ended, that's when it just dive bombed.
I would have rather seen a movie about young kids who's practicing for the big video game competition. That would have been neat.
Sure.
It's called The Wizard.
I haven't seen The Wizard.
You've never seen The Wizard?
No. I hate was it Michael Savage, Adam Savage?
Wait, what? I can use
Fred
that?
Savage.
Fred Savage. I hate Fred Savage.
How do you hate Fred Savage?
I don't know. I just do. I don't have.
You're
a
the
good
only
reason.
person on the planet that hates Fred Savage.
Fred Savage was like 8 years old when he was on the Wonder Years, and then he disappeared off the face of the planet. How the hell can you hate him?
For some reason, I just find him annoying.
You're just jealous of Fred Savage. You had a big crush on Paul. Set up for Winnie, reverse it with Paul, create joke.
I get it.
Check mark.
Mike, that was almost a joke.
Almost a joke.
And it was a joke using a reference as a setup.
Almost a joke is closer to a joke than anything in Pixels.
That's right. There were no jokes. There were so many what moments. You remember we had the what moment counter or whatever for that? We were like, what? And there's just those like, someone yells something and it makes no sense. You're just like, what?
Yeah.
Is that supposed to be funny?
Yeah, well, you had mentioned there's the scene early on when they're just starting to figure out what's going on. Oh, we didn't even mention that Kevin James is the president of the United States in this film. and he's childhood friends with Adam Sandler. They were both video game fans. So this attack happens completely out of nowhere. Just all of a sudden, there's an attack. There's no setup. There's no build-up. It's just, oh, someone's being attacked by something. And then Kevin James calls in his best childhood buddy, Adam Sandler. And Adam Sandler says, this is like Gattaca. This is Gattaca. Gattaca? Galaga. Gattaca is a film starring Ethan Hawke. Galaga.
There we go.
So he's in this boardroom with all these stuffy boardroom presidential people that are serious about their jobs because this is someone invading the Earth. And then Adam Sandler comes in shorts and just starts making fun of everybody for no reason. And you had mentioned that it felt like a bad attempt to do like a Judd Apatow, Adam McKay riff moment.
It felt like improv comedy. There was a lot of scenes that kept going on, and it felt like Anchorman, where a scene would go on a little too long because the actors were riffing and having a good time. And so this scene, like you said, Adam Sandler's in the boardroom. Oh, get out of here, you crazy kid! And for no reason whatsoever, he decides to rib everyone in the room.
Yeah. There's a guy, when he first shows up, there's a guy that thinks he's the sandwich delivery man, but he's not. And then so when Adam Sandler's leaving, he's like, your sandwiches are here. No, they're not.
Oh.
And they're like, what?
That was the joke.
Because he wanted sandwiches because he was overweight.
Because he was a great big fat guy.
There were moments like that where I was like, is Adam Sandler improving or is this scripted? And I didn't know.
Well, what's worse? What would be worse, if that was improv or if that was scripted?
Both.
They're both just equally terrible.
Worse. Yeah.
I have found a corpse of an
I believe that some alien life force
I'll take
sent down real-life video games to attack us.
That makes sense.
I'll get to my predictions.
Oh yes, we wrote predictions.
Oh no, I didn't know we had homework.
Now my predictions are terrible, and the movie was worse than my predictions. I was going for Roland Emmerich level. So I have Adam Sandler will have a degree in computers or something like that, but will have squandered his potential and works in a video game store or a Geek Squad type place. The movie's events will be his redemption. His squandered potential was only not winning the Donkey Kong challenge as a 5-year-old.
Yeah. That's literally the high point of his life.
I think they make a joke about Mississippi Technical Institute.
He went to MIT.
Mississippi Institute of Technology,
yeah.
MIT. But I don't know if that was a joke or not. But really, like
it was supposed to be, but it was so botched.
But I was thinking he would have an estranged son or divorced wife. They think he's a loser. You can't see his son on, blah blah blah. And then he redeems himself through the events of the movie. They didn't even bother with that.
No.
They'd mentioned an ex-wife, but they were too lazy to show her.
Or even get into it.
Yeah.
Or even to show that he has the smarts to be like a master computer programmer, but it's just,
he must have been a member of that
I'll just work at Best Buy. Whatever.
I think they mentioned the ex-wife once solely so people wouldn't be saying. So the highlight of this guy's whole life is that he played Donkey Kong when he was 9 years old?
Yeah, that's all they got into with his character.
That's all they got into. Like, they kept mentioning his, like, ability and his potential.
But what is that potential? Yeah, the Michelle Moynihan character when they have their little romantic scene. She's like, "You're destined for great things. How did you come to this conclusion?"
Right. Did you think
His only skill set is playing video games.
And not even all video games. Only like 3.
Very specific.
3 very specific video games.
30-year-old video games.
Yes.
It's a specialty.
The ones in the movie are the only ones I know how to play. I didn't progress.
Team Sigma.
Well, considering Kevin James was in it with Adam Sandler, I thought they would split main character duties. Adam Sandler would redeem himself and get back together with his ex-wife, his son, and I thought Kevin James was going to get the girl, the person who works in the government.
Sure. New log entry.
And
I established connection with someone from an Imperial expedition on the ship.
He just had a wife,
but
and
he is clearly confusing me.
Do you remember that hilarious B plot about him and his wife hating each other?
Oh yeah, that went nowhere, had no purpose. And they even cast a comedic actress in the role and gave her literally nothing to do.
I don't think she had one line.
She had a couple lines, but none of them even like an attempt at a joke. No. And she's funny, Jane Krakowski. She's very funny.
But they had cake. And then he was very uncomfortable trying to tell her that another woman was attractive because she asked.
And then she just vanished from the movie. Poochie went back to his home planet.
We've never faced a threat like this before. We need video game expertise. These guys were champions back in '82.
Sam Brenner, Pac-Man World Champion.
What's up?
Ludlow Lamensov, Master of Centipede.
Also known as
your worst nightmare.
Okay, Josh Gad will like to eat things. Maybe fart.
Nobody farted, we should mention.
There was a Josh Gad 2 butt cracks, if that counts. There was no farting.
There was no farting.
He will be a sex pervert who makes awkward advances on women. But this was before I saw like, there was like 10 trailers for like children's films, and there was like I heard little kids all over the theater. I was like, oh, is this like a G-rated film?
Well, it turns out he makes all sorts of moves on men in this movie.
Yeah, there's like
for no reason.
there's some gay panic stuff in
But
this.
he's not gay, as we learn later in the film. He's just randomly like slapping dudes' asses for no.
Well, he tries to kiss Adam Sandler on the mouth.
He does, but he's not gay. It doesn't make any sense.
I think like the whole thing was just like he doesn't know anything about anything, so he's into dudes and girls.
He's silly. His character trait is that he's silly.
Adam and Tim Herlihy and Tim Dowling wrote a character that was really eccentric.
So Josh Gad is in love with a video game lady.
Yeah, we know he's in love with her because he says it for the first 20 minutes of the movie. And he foreshadows things very subtly by saying, if she was a real person, we would be in love for the rest of our life. Like, it's so awkward and bad, the way it's delivered.
Weren't you shocked when she showed up at the end?
I was shocked that she showed up at the end, pixelated for 2 seconds, and then just became normal-looking hot lady, because we can't have him fall in love with a pixel character. So it's just woman now for no reason.
Every single other bad guy enemy is a fairly nice 3D rendering of a square pixel monster. You know, we get the Paperboy, we get the Galaga guys, right? And all of a sudden, the pixel lady from whatever game that was called shows up, and she morphs into the actress, a human lady.
Who, by the way, is a real actress who has been in other things where she delivers lines, which she doesn't do in this film.
I'm sorry, lady.
So you're heading
I
to the
hope you're a
control
good
room
actor.
to disable the
Was
jammer.
her line?
That's the plan, yes.
Keep putting it
And
in
who is
my
this Caius
vagina.
Thorne exactly?
Are you
Quite a character.
implying that she is a
Otherwise, I have no idea.
pornographic actor?
That's
He
what I was
seems to think
implying.
that I'm a member of his
Close, she was in a
mysterious
Harmony Korine
expedition.
film.
If there is
That's
an
like an
expedition,
embarrassing
they
porno.
might be trapped in that monastery just like you.
But
Why
she's
do
a
you
real
think so?
lady for some reason.
mean to say,
Yeah.
that
She's a
giant
real lady
wreckage looks completely dead from here.
some reason, and
No
she starts
sign of
attacking
any
Josh
other
Gad.
For no
aircraft in
reason.
the vicinity.
Huh? For no reason. You said for some reason. For no reason is more accurate.
There is no reason because they don't know that Josh Gad is in love with her. If they knew, then that would be a good reason to make her into a real lady, to trick him for some reason. If they
it's
could
the aliens
read our
thing,
brains,
Yeah.
But there is no reason. So Jay is correct. For some reason is wrong.
Okay, you know what? I take that back then. I take that back.
But anyway.
She turns into a lady. And, you know, Josh Gad has what is supposed to be a comedy moment, and I love you, I've always loved you, and then she starts attacking him because she's the bad guy. But then, for no reason, Josh Gad stops fighting her and professes his love.
Again.
No, well, that's actually wrong. He professes his love for some reason, because he actually is in love with her. For no reason, she
I was gonna
gets
get to the no
emotional.
reason.
Yes.
That's what I was gonna get to, is for no reason then she decides to join up with the humans.
Yeah.
Look, at that point in the movie, does it matter?
Yes, everything matters.
I think some level of logic does matter in a movie.
Well, okay, no, it doesn't. As long as the movie is funny and entertaining.
Okay.
Because you're not supposed to believe that pixelated characters come to Earth. It's so stupid. You can't take that concept seriously. So if you can't take the concept seriously, at least have jokes.
But they have Madonna on the TV.
Because remember the 80s? Remember the 80s? Remember these 80s rock songs? We're going to play those throughout the whole film.
I have some issues.
Good.
The aliens get their information from a probe that was sent out in 1982.
I was just about to talk about this.
Yeah, but there's things that show up from after 1982. Like back then, I don't think it was a thing until like
I wonder if these mongrel tribes are the descendants of the original inhabitants.
Really, Rich, for a second,
I'll
I
know
thought you
more
were going to
soon.
talk about how a probe sent out in 1982 would probably be near the
certainly.
inner solar system only. The Voyager probe sent out in the 70s is just barely leaving our solar system. So, at least in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, they speculate that the Voyager probe may have entered a wormhole. You could come up with any bullshit excuse to have aliens turn themselves into video games and attack you, but you gotta make it funny.
I will say the one positive thing I have to say about the movie is all of the video game characters and the pixelized bricks, those all look neat.
Yeah.
And that's the only positive thing I really have to say.
And there was I hadn't seen the short film before we saw this. There was one moment during the Big End battle that was I thought was a really clever visual gag, and I was like, that's way too smart. That has to be from the short film. And it turns out that it was. It's when the Tetris pieces are falling onto the building, and then they line up and they go boop, and then the building collapses. I was like, that's way too smart for this movie, and it turns out it's directly taken from the short.
The computer animators, the visual effects people, the distracting part for me was I saw the laziness come through it. I saw Adam Sandler going, well, we could shoot this stuff. We don't have to do anything. We'll just hand it off to this company that'll make all the things happen. I remember seeing like a panorama shot. And the only two things in the frame are like Peter Dinklage and Josh Gad, and they got the guns. There's just all this stuff going on. And just going, okay, we're done. You know, Adam Sandler runs by and like, you know.
I really noticed it during the first alien attack, the centipede attack. But yeah, and then at one point Adam Sandler grabs a gun because he's like, you're doing it wrong, there's a pattern, and he starts shooting. And you can tell, like, he has the most bored expression on his face, where he's just like,
yeah.
And he's like, they're just gonna add everything in later, whatever. And he just does this. Yeah.
I was shocked initially at the start of that because they're like,
considering that I'm
the
alive,
next spot's
I'd
going to
say
be
I'm
in
making
London.
adequate progress.
And they have like a stock footage shot of them flying over London. Then it cuts to them in like
Under some
a field
smoldering wreckage.
with like trees, and it's London because they're soccer players there.
You don't think they actually shot that in London?
I don't think so. I'm pretty sure they didn't. I'm like, I want to see Big Ben get smashed, and you know the
big Ferris wheel,
the Thames River. Right, and the London Bridge is falling down. It fell down, and then Adam Sandler says, "London Bridge is falling down. It's no time for nursery rhymes. No, for real." But anyway, they go to a field. There's a field. That's, the centipede does go out into a street, but you know it's just a street, and it goes through like some old lady's apartment building. I guess there is a deaf elderly person joke there, right?
Yes.
The old lady's doing like...
The centipede goes into her apartment and she's doing aerobics. She doesn't
that's
notice.
perfectly acceptable. The centipede does aerobics for a little bit. You know.
See, and I guess this is too much to ask for this movie, but that shows like the whole idea is that they're following the formulas of these video games, but that's like, for no reason, the centipede just stops doing that and attacks the city.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't, they're beating the game by the game's rules, but then the game just doesn't play by
it just does whatever it wants so we can have an action scene.
But so, remember that whole scene that was supposed to be in the movie? We need the scene where the geek prevails, right? Like, no, my geeky, crazy methods are better than your standard military methods, right? But at that point, he had been already training the military guys on how to do all this stuff.
Yeah.
So then why wouldn't they let him do it too?
Yeah, right.
Because he was...
Or why wouldn't they do the things that they were just trained to do in the previous scene?
Well, they were, yeah, that's a good point. They weren't as good as him, but yeah, if he's a consultant, why, you know, the logic that he ran up and took over was the logic of I'm a bystander behind the police line who thinks he knows better and going to jump over and run past security and do it.
Because they really cared about realism, and it would have been too silly if he just went right into the thick of things.
But believe me, there is still much work to
But
be
he
done.
was in there, like he was
trying to tell them what to do, and they're like, and Brian Cox or whoever, Sean Bean, maybe, I don't even remember. One of them was just like, don't listen to that guy, even though we've been listening to that guy for the last 10 minutes.
Well,
the entire previous scene.
I think the Brian Cox character had like a nerd prejudice, right? And then he was like,
I don't know what's better, if losing to the aliens or letting these guys
yeah,
win.
like he was very angry, and that's fine. That's like a movie character, and I expected him to do something to like, I'm gonna do it my way. I'm gonna get the nukes out, and oh no, you know, like. But instead, he just kind of like goes.
And then he just sort of disappears from
And then it ends. Yeah.
They really needed to try and use like conventional military things against them because they never do that, and then just have it completely fail. And then that's when your Adam Sandler jumps in with the video game logic.
Yes.
Yeah, that would have been.
The first attempt to stop them is us shooting missiles or sending military jets. You know.
They needed to remake Independence Day.
They were lazy with their framework. We always say it's a framework to hang stuff on.
Yeah.
They were lazy with their framework. Like having Kevin James be the president of the United States, who just happened to be friends with Adam Sandler as a kid, like terrible.
Yeah.
At least have just some stuffy president, have a military attempt fail, and then go, oh, these are video games. We better dig up these schmucks from, you know, the gutter to come up and help. Instead, from the beginning, Adam Sandler was like hanging out in the White House, like lazy writing.
Yeah.
Shit.
So you need a framework to hang jokes on, but this movie had no framework and it had no jokes.
No. It had nothing but what you got from the 2-minute short.
Which is the good stuff.
Which is the good stuff.
Yeah.
The 2-minute short had everything that this movie had, without wading through these fucking boring scenes where Adam Sandler was talking to people endlessly for hours. It was just fucking boring.
Yeah.
It was more cinematic looking than recent Adam Sandler movies, though, because it was directed by Chris Columbus, who I guess his...
The guy who founded America?
The guy who founded America. Actually, Chris Columbus's company is like 1492 Productions or something like that, but his best work was done in the 80s.
Yeah,
so
is he the one who's directing the fucking racist Indian film?
I didn't progress.
Early on, Peter Dinklage in the 1982 beats Adam Sandler as a kid at the Donkey Kong World Championship, and Adam Sandler thought he was the best. Well, flash forward to the Pac-Man scene where they're all driving around in little cars, and the lady, what's her name? Michelle Moynihan is watching the screen, and Peter Dinklage's ghost car goes real fast, which is not physically possible with a real car.
Right.
But anyway, she's like, how did he do that? Never mind. And then they brought it up later. He, on his inside of his sunglasses, he has this like mathematical formula, which is a cheat code.
Yeah.
And apparently he had used a cheat code in the 1982 while playing Donkey Kong, and he also used them on Pac-Man.
Yeah.
Rich Evans, you are a Pac-Man expert.
Yeah.
This is true about Rich Evans.
Okay.
He's played a lot of Pac-Man.
He loves swallowing balls.
Is there such a thing as a Pac-Man cheat code?
No, there is no such thing as a Pac-Man cheat code. I don't think any of those old arcade games had cheat codes.
Well, here's a better question. How do you use a cheat code in reality to make a car go ultra fast?
Because the car has a cheat code. Built into it makes it go really fast.
That's I'm okay, okay, cheat code in Pac-Man, whatever. It doesn't make any sense, but it's a movie. But it's the reality of, like, he uses a cheat code on his car that he's driving?
That was a terrible way to introduce the fact that he's a cheater.
Yeah.
That's his character, and that's fine as an angle. He's a cheater, well, actually, it makes no sense at the end either.
See, that's my real problem.
It is, because at the end, what's his name, Adam Sandler? He realizes he is the Donkey Kong champ, and that gives him the
confidence
to go ahead and fight the Donkey Kong and not be scared anymore. Yeah. So all that led to that, which is fine.
No, but see, that's my real problem. Like, you know what? The cheat code works on the car because fuck it, it's a movie. I am okay with that because you know why? It's a movie, and I don't care.
I'm with Rich's face on this one.
Sure.
Can I kill it? No. We've tried to stay true to the real games themselves in the context of doing something in a three-dimensional world.
You know what else wasn't funny? Anytime Q*bert talked. Because Q*bert talks now. And they gave him, whoever did his voice, fine, he talks.
Yeah, a cutesy voice.
They gave him a cutesy voice, and I noticed that was the only thing that anyone in the theater responded to, because our theater was like dead silent. And occasionally when Q*bert would say something, people would go, oh.
But he's an adorable character that everybody loves.
This is just
and then in the end, he kind of gets erased and turned into a woman, and everybody's happy about that.
Yeah.
The hostiles are keeping some of my scouts caged
Josh
up
Gad
in the
gets the woman as a trophy. The woman
it.
is a literal trophy in the movie.
She's such a strong woman. She's tough and nothing stops her. I think it's important for girls to see that they can do anything the guys can do.
He fucks a woman, and then in the post-credit thing,
That was most
he has Hubert babies.
Yeah.
She apparently gave birth to
New log
Hubert
entry.
babies. You'd think
This
Hubert
sanctum
by himself
gives
would
me
just
the
suffice.
shivers.
I mean,
The iconography
Look at
is
his mouth.
clearly imperial in origin, and it points to...
and plus, he, you know, he's not going to talk afterwards.
Describe Hubert Fellatio more.
blood.
I think this is what we need.
What a weirdo.
What's there's so little room left in my heart for Adam Sandler hate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, like, watching this, like, people go into Adam Sandler movies now, people like us, wanting to, like, hate them and rip them apart, and there's a lot of that online right now for Pixels. It's almost not even worthy of getting angry about. It's more just sort of, like, confusing and sad and boring.
Sad is the appropriate word.
Yeah, because you look at Jack and Jill, and a movie like that was frustrating at how transparent the sleaze was. And
That was eye-opening for us.
It was very eye-opening. This is sad or pathetic. It feels very pathetic. I like the Pac-Man sequence. That was about it. Other than that, I felt sorry for every actor in it.
You know, we both talk about we're getting older, man, and we're gonna have to pull the plug someday. But every time we do it, we go, "Hey, man, this idea is pretty fun," and we get excited again.
Adam Sandler looks, he's like the sad clown now, where he's not even trying. It's like watching Orson Welles doing a wine commercial.
Like, remember in any other movie where aliens attack the Earth, how the aliens' first attack has a massive build-up to it? And there's some excitement, there's tension in there because we don't know what's coming. And all of a sudden, boom, the attack comes. And remember how in Pixels, they just show up fucking 5 minutes into the movie?
It's just like, what is it, Guam? Is that where they're at? It just says Guam, and then they just go, pew!
Wait a minute. Are you guys saying Pixels fucked something up? Is that your point?
That's the general consensus, yes.
Huh.
I know this changes everything.
Well, I think we're finally done talking about Pixels.
You're fired.
What?
Yeah, but thank you so much for helping out at the shop. We really appreciate it.
All right, that's fair, I guess, but you guys do plan to pay us, right? You know, for all the shifts we took?
I don't recall ever discussing payments. I thought you guys were just doing it because you work.
What are you kidding? Nobody likes you.
Get out.
Fine. You win for now, nerds. We'll leave. But first, we'd like to go in the back. We left some personal items back there we need to collect. They're next to your safe, which we have the combination to.
Okay, that's no problem. I told you those guys were pushovers.
Right? No paycheck, no more VCR repair shop.
Jay and Mike, you fuckers left me to freeze to death on that mountain. And for that, you're going to die. No, him. No! Bonzadalyevich, you son of a bitch. Die, Jay, or Mike, or whichever one of you I'm currently stabbing. You didn't fix my VCR. Why didn't you fix my VCR? I just wanted to watch Night Court, and you tried to freeze me to death! Take that, Mike and Jay! You motherfuckers left me on a mountain to die. Almost starved to death in goddamn Nepal.
Well, that was disappointing.
I can't believe they have the only existing copy of The Day the Clown Cried.
Who cares? Is that worth anything?
It is to Jerry Lewis.
Inquisitor, our augurs are starting to pick up huge waves.
You are addressing a servant of the Imperium who must be watchful.
Oh my God, it's a
bloodbath. So what is your plan?
Burn in hell, you
Yes, the
motherfuckers!
power we draw upon.
I'll have the
Mr.
transport.
Plinkett?
What? Who's that? Who's talking? I can't see anything. My glasses are too frosted from the fucking cold.
Why, my name...
What to watch?
Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. With Classic well underway and us just getting access to Zul'Gurub recently, our first 20-man raid, I imagine quite a few of us will now have set foot in raids and seen what they have to offer, or vicariously at least. And since Classic has been so well practiced over the years, throughout the duration of many different private servers, theory crafting, min-maxing and just applying game knowledge to issues, we have evolved into a pretty rigid meta in terms of what is usually done and why. And of course, though it's not necessary by any means, playing to the meta certainly will make your run smoother and faster overall. It does unfortunately miss out on the learning curve that can always be entertaining though. But as I try and emphasize, there are guilds out there for everybody. You want a guild that goes into raids blind? You can bet it exists if you try and find it. Looking forwards, however, at the ever-growing possibility of us setting foot in Classic TBC one day, I wanted to check out some of the biggest meta changes that occur from vanilla to World of Warcraft's first expansion. And just so we're all on the same page here, when I say meta, I'm referring to the generally best accepted way of doing things in terms of raid composition, buffs, talents, consumables, and anything else that changes the way you play. Number 1, the debuff limit being raised to 40. Vanilla started off with a mere debuff limit of 8. Considering 40 people were in most raids, that made each debuff slot extremely valuable so that each and every person could get the most bonus damage from these slots. And in some way it made it very easy to assign debuffs that benefited the most players, curses, sunder armor and so on. In patch 1.7, the ZG patch by the way, this was raised to 16, allowing a bit more flexibility, but hardly allowing most classes that had damage over time effects as part of their core rotation to apply them. In fact, all it really does is just open up more slots for debuffs that are good, but not quite good enough to fit on the 8 debuff slots. The only real damage over time effects that are actively applied are things like Corruption from Warlock. 16 debuffs still doesn't allow for damage over time effects like Serpent Sting from Hunters, Flame Shock from Shaman, Deadly Poison from Rogues and so on, all of which would positively impact your damage performance over the duration of a fight. In patch 2.0.1, the opening patch of TBC, the debuff limit was raised all the way to 40. This did allow for far more debuffs that were always seen as optional to be applied, and since raids were downscaled to 25-man maximum, the chance every player could actually press their abilities went up quite considerably. Debuffs still had a priority system, however. For example, an actively applied debuff like Sunder Armor could not be replaced by an actively applied damage over time effect like Serpent Sting, or a passive one like Deep Wound. So it did depend somewhat on the raid composition as well. For instance, a warrior may have 5 debuffs: Sunder Armor, Thunderclap, Demoralizing Shout, Deep Wounds, and Blood Frenzy. The only one here that is applied on more than one slot per
Let's
warrior
take a look
is
at this
Deep Wounds.
cogitator.
So no matter how many warriors you have, it will always be 5 debuffs maximum taken from them. However, if you have 3 warlocks who are all affliction, each one will need a curse slot, corruption, unstable affliction, maybe Lucky Siphon Life on top of that, as well as Shadow Embrace and improved Shadow Hold, which are shared between all warlocks. That's 4 debuff slots per lock and 2 shared for all locks, so you can see how the debuff cap can still be hit. You just need to plan it out a little bit when bringing certain classes, but by and large, your access to pressing all of your buttons should be much better come DBC, and it's better to try and work out who does what debuffs beforehand. You'll just constantly be applying dots that are instantly overlapped by other dots and don't even tick for any damage, making the whole raid worse as a whole. So, subject to debuffs, this brings me to my second point, the new debuffs and buffs added in TBC. These were mostly given to classes that were considered hybrids. And by hybrids, I just mean a class that has access to perform more than one role, like Shaman, Priest, Paladins, and so on. And whilst many of these classes did retain good buffs and debuffs from Classic, like Blessings or Shadow Weaving, all of the ones we're going to go over now are new to TBC or buffed for TBC, making bringing these classes along so much more desirable. Druid's Moonkin form, as well as the critical strike increase from the Leader of the Pack buff from Feral Tree, will both increase the 5% extra crit. These were both free in Classic. Tree of Life increased healing nearby allies received by 20% of your total spirit. Improved Fairy Fire from Boomkins gave a massive plus 3% hit debuff on the target. Amazing for single target fights, where they can apply it quickly. As for Paladins, Retribution were given some super nice buffs. Improved Sanctiora gave a flat 2% damage for all your party members with the Paladin, and Improved Seal of the Crusader gave a flat 3% increased critical strike chance against the target they judge with that. As for Priest, Improved Divine Spirit gave all players affected bonus spell power based upon their spirit, and Shadow gained Vampiric Touch, a very strong debuff. Shadow creeps are often referred to as mana batteries, and this was the main role in their raid. 5% of all shadow damage they dealt is returned to party members as mana. You definitely want a Shadow Priest in your healer group. Shaman were the absolute buff gods of TBC. As for buffs, Totem of Wrath from Elemental Shaman gave 3% spell hit and crit, and if you're in a group with a Draenei Shaman, thanks to their passive Inspiring Presence, you automatically get 4% spell hit, which is amazing. Unleashed Rage, 10% attack power, basically permanently uptime. It's reapplied every time the Shaman crits. This is in the enhancement tree. Shield for Restoration also provides some protection against spell knockback as well as heals. And let's not forget Heroism or Bloodlust, whichever one you want to call it. 40 seconds of 30% haste for all party members, incredibly powerful buff. And of course, don't forget Horde Paladins and Alliance Shamans will get Blessings, Auras, and a new tanking class. Alliance get Wind Fury and all the other benefits and totals that the Shamans bring. On top of the hybrids, many new other classes had nice additions as well. Beast Mastery Hunters had Ferocious Inspiration, a 3% flat damage buff for all party members. Survival got Exposed Weakness, a more or less permanent uptime on a debuff that increased all attack power against the target by 20% of your agility. Affliction mods got Shadow Embrace, 3% less physical damage caused, as well as Malediction, improving the damage bonuses from the curses. Armed Warriors got Blood Frenzy, 4% increased physical damage taken. Overall, you can just see there's so much more emphasis on debuffs that are linked to certain specializations rather than just classes. On top of the extended debuff cap, this made it just so much more attractive to bring a wide variety of classes along to your raid. Number 3, the consumable and world buff pruning. In vanilla, the sheer number of consumables you need for each raid is just off the charts. It varies from class to class, but as a warlock, I could have the following: a Major Troll's Blood Elixir, Elixir of Major Fortitude, Rumsey Road Black Label, Until Tube of Surprise, the Badlands Intellect buff, Elixir of Greater Shadow Power, Greater Arcane Elixir, and a Flask of Supreme Power. And I'm probably forgetting some stuff here too. I'm also going to need Greater Elemental Protection Potions, Restoration Potions, Health Potions, Mana Potions, Demonic Runes, Reaction Potions, Limited Vulnerability Potions, Invisibility Potions, White Houses for Multi-Core, Elixir Cloak, 50 Stopwatch, and Goblin Sapper Charges. All of those for one raid night. I have an alt just for raid consumables and a little setup on my bar so I don't forget anything come raid night. On top of this, we have world buffs. We've got our Nixia buff, the Diamond Tribute buff, Sunflower buff, Zul'Gurub world buff, seasonal buffs from holidays, and Dark Reaper. It's up at the moment. Once again, just like playing meta comps in raids, this stuff isn't strictly needed, but it makes your runs much easier. Also, it makes you turf in raids, and seeing high performance matching your dedication to prepare the raid is quite satisfying overall, as long as those buffs don't get dispelled. In TBC, Blizzard put an end to all this really. World buffs were no longer applied on characters who were over level 63. There were still certainly some new world buffs introduced in TBC, but they were things like the zone-wide damage buffs when you control Halar or the Hellfire Peninsula objectives. Also things like Blessing of Adal from a quest chain turn-in at Adal and Shatrath gave a buff for everybody in the city. This turn-in is mid-Karazhan achievement though, but where there's a will to pass, there'll be a way. Also we had things like Adal's Song of Battle from the same place after handing in an item gained from defeating Kel'Thas in Tempest Keep. As for consumables, stacking them as we do in vanilla got totally nuked in patch 2.1 and greatly simplified. I'm going to go over the patch notes here. Key takeaways are things such as elixirs are now Battle or Guardian, Battle giving some kind of offense, Guardian defense. This extended to things like Jujus, the items from Zanza, the Badlands items, limited and vulnerability potions were mega nerfed to just reduce a bit of damage, flask power was reduced across the board, and the materials required was also nerfed. Also, flasks counted as both battle and Guardian elixirs, so your raiding shopping list was cut down from that mega long item list I went over before to basically just flask plus food. Easy. There were still sharpening stones for melee that they could use, and elemental protection potions were still a thing. I believe the drink buffs also counted in the same slot as food, but I was unable to find out 100% based on memory or looking online. Maybe you guys will be able to help out with that one. Either way, the hassle of world buffs on the shopping list was done away with and made super easy for everybody to get hold of. Also, whilst world buffs can be fun, they add such an insane amount of power to your character, and designing a boss encounter to prove a challenge whilst accommodating players that are literally 2 times as powerful as others just isn't really possible, so it's probably for the best balance-wise in the long term. Number 4, attunements. You've got to be hearing this so much leading up to TBC, and for good reason. They're central to the PvE gearing and the raiding ladder. You may be familiar with this little chart. This is how attunements look in TBC. Overall, it's pretty insane. Really though, this is one dungeon leads to the next, a raid leads to the next raid, and so on and so forth,
Inquisitor,
all the way up to
what's
the top
happening
of the
down
ladder.
there?
And
Are
attunements
you
were
all
nerfed
right?
later on down the line in TBC,
Inquisitor,
but early
listen to
game
me.
I would fully
The
expect
monastery-
it to look exactly like this. And whilst there are attunements in Classic, they're just pretty basic overall, especially the raid ones. You can solo the Molten Core attunement on most classes. Blackwing Lair is just clearing UBRS. They aren't a huge barrier to entry. In TBC, they are. Hopefully it's going to mean there will be far more dungeon groups running as well. I remember facing a deficit of tanks in Classic after only about 2 weeks, especially since we'll have protection paladins that have been changed so substantially. They should end up being a lot more popular. In any event, I think the achievement ladder is something to look forwards to, as building up our character from a fresh level 70 to be capable of accessing the top level content that the game has to offer. Finally, as I did mention earlier, raids have been downscaled. Gone are the days of 40-man raids in Molten Core, Blackwing Lair and the others. Now it's 25 or 10. Both Karazhan, available from launch, as well as Zul'Aman later on, a 10-man focus. All of the raids, including the smaller ones like Mechtheridon or Ghul's Lair, are all 25. This downsizing of course made raids a small place to be in, but they were no less grand in scale for it. Also, raids in TBC dropped about the same amount as loot as raids in vanilla did, despite there being up to 15 less players. This did invariably split up many guilds from Classic into smaller shards that went on to compete anew. However, the 25 format would be kept around for literally years to come, so it wasn't that problematic long term. What it did do was make it a bit more picky in making sure that you have every debuff in your raid that you do want. Whereas in Classic you could get every debuff easily. In fact, back then the issue was not having too many debuffs. In TBC, ticking them all off could prove a bit more difficult at times, especially with respec costs still being a thing. All in all, TBC changed up the PvE meta and raiding big time. However, it also made it a whole lot simpler to get into, as well as making a more accessible place for certain specializations that have been looked down upon for far too long. There are plenty more reasons why TBC's raiding and PvE scene differs so greatly from Classic as well, but these are just a few that came to mind for me. You can let me know if you have any other ones that made a big change too. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one. If you like what you see, give the video a like and subscribe, as there's plenty more to come. As always, thank you all so much for watching. Take care.
My
Bye.
astropath has sent your audio log to the Caligari Conclave, as you requested.
Let me guess. Another local warp surge manifestation swallowed the...
No, actually. We have received...
Well, that must be a mistake. It's the Imperial
Hello,
bureaucracy.
ladies and gentlemen.
I have
and welcome
no
back to my
idea
look at
what
how
we found out
Cataclysm
there,
changed
but it
World
must
of
be really
Warcraft. This is the
Inquisitor,
second part of this
we are
video.
raising your
If you
queries
haven't, I
now.
would recommend checking
You
out
are
part 1
henceforth
first,
authorized
which
to
I'll
listen
link
to
below.
confidential
Let's get straight back
information
into it by
without-
talking
Our
about
task.
the PvE.
The Space
Now,
Marine
as you may
rescue was
remember,
part of
or
the
have seen from my
expedition
Wrath of
that
the Lich
found
King
the martyr
videos,
somehow.
Wrath
That
Heroic
man
dungeons
is in
were very
stasis at
easy
the moment.
difficulty-wise,
He
and
was
really
torn
took
into
a lot from
pieces.
away from there being any
Correct
real
me if
challenge
I'm
from
wrong.
5-man content.
Indeed.
Enter the Cataclysm
We
era
need a
5-man
I
heroics.
come from
They
a
were the
long
hardest they've
line
been
of
since
rogue traders,
TBC,
Inquisitor.
though not quite on the same level as TBC, especially early on, but they were still not a walk in the park by any means. There was a minimum gear level requirement on the LFG to gain entry, but honestly the LFG might as well have not been there for the Cataclysm heroics, because your random group that stumbled its way through Wrath heroics didn't really stand much of a chance. The remade and updated Shadowfang Keep and Dead Mines were very tightly tuned early on, clearly more designed around having a more organised group. They were far too difficult for your average pickup group. I know I really enjoyed the dungeons back then and the renewed challenge, and it was the only time when I went out of my way to complete the dungeon meta achievement, because it felt like it meant something early on. Between just having a guild to do content, you needed solid players to get everything completed. And funnily enough, Blizzard defended dungeons being in this difficult state. I respect it for sure. Imagine Blizzard telling players they just need to get good these days. And Ghostcrawler isn't wrong here. I just don't think you can expect that much from a system that allows random players to queue up with a very small barrier to entry. Honestly though, it was a bit over the top difficulty wise, and the fact pugs could queue into it was like throwing people into a meat grinder at the start of the expansion, and I think it actually would have put quite a few people off LFG for a good while. Blizzard wouldn't try difficult content in LFG again for a very long time. Well, at least not on purpose. And I think this was the right decision in the long term. Later on we had Zul'Gurub and Zul'Aman remade, as well as the 3 dungeons towards the end of the expansion, being End Time, Hour of Twilight, and the Well of Eternity. Once again, these weren't free loot pinatas. You had to know a decent bit about what's going on around you, or you're going to be swiftly facing a res run back to the instance. Also, I think the Cataclysm dungeons were just cool design-wise. The environments, the ideas around the elements and uncovering forgotten lands were wonderfully explored. We had dungeons like Stonecore, Halls of Origination, Grim Batol with that flight around with the dragon, Lost City of the Tolvir, Vortex Pinnacle, which is one of my top dungeons ever to be put in the game. I pretty much love them all. Well, apart from Throne of the Tides, that is. That jellyfish elevator just takes way too long, and the backtracking's kind of annoying. The instant quest system that auto-completed as you went through the dungeons made them pretty attractive to do as well. Moving forwards, heroics were never this much of a challenge ever again, and I doubt they ever will be, but this was a good initial look into possible challenges from 5-man content, and was built upon in each expansion to come. Which brings us to Raid. Raids in Cataclysm were changed to be more flexible. Wrath of the Lich King ended with 10 and 25-man normal, and heroic all on separate lockouts. You could, in theory, be doing 4 raids a week of the same raid if you really wanted to, even though there's not really much point doing that, but you get the idea. Also, 25-man raids awarded better loot than 10-man, despite not always being more difficult beyond logistics of organising 25 people. Also, once you zone in a raid, you become locked shortly after. This made pugging kind of a nightmare when you started getting to challenging bosses. Say you join an ICC pug on Deathbringer Sourfang, and it falls apart after 2 pulls, well, that's kind of your lockout attempt gone for the week. In Cataclysm it was changed so you could kill any boss once per week. So you could, in theory, do bosses 1 to 3 in a raid on 10-man, then 4 to 6 on 25-man in the same week. Also, your progress will only be saved once a boss is defeated, not after zoning in, which made it much better experience overall for the puggers. You could also link your lockout to others, showing which bosses had been defeated, allowing easier communication for forming pugs. And finally, the 10-25-man loot divide was removed, as both levels gave equal gear. However, with these changes, the difficulty level of heroic raids went up a whole lot from Wrath of the Lich King. No longer was time gating a factor, no longer were achievements a factor as they have been in the past. These bosses were just hard, and designing encounters to be very close affairs while not being over the top would prove to still be an issue between 10 and 25-man raids. Some bosses were insane on 10-man, but not too bad on 25, like Halfus Wormbreaker or the Conclave of the Four Winds. Cataclysm also introduced 1 week on normal before the heroic opened, and all the clear times we will be going over here will be from launch, so it's still very impressive. Just keep in mind that Wrath of the Lich King's first tier was polished off in 2 days from launch, but back then they didn't have heroic mode either, so you can't really compare the two. And I'm just going to say it, I think Cataclysm had some of the absolute best raiding World of Warcraft has ever seen in its whole duration, especially during the early tiers. The first tier, Tier 11, was one of my favourites ever. Blackwing Descent with the return of Nefarian and Onyxia for the second time took 27 days to clear. Bastion of Twilight, I remember many pugs forming to farm the trash at the start for epics. It had many memorable fights in it, the Double Dragons, Valiona and Thoralion, the Ascendant Council, Jugal, and the hidden boss, Sinestra, a hidden boss that was not really finished and thoroughly untested. Numerous bugs that one-shot the raid, and even bugs leading to the raid nearly one-shotting the boss. So it was a pretty frustrating time for top-end guilds who were essentially live testing the boss, as it was hotfix pull to pull. Secret heroic bosses are always so hype, but getting them tested by the players they're designed for has always been the issue, and we will see another example of this next expansion. Throne of the Four Winds was the longest part of Tier 11 to be cleared. Alakia lived for 42 days and was a truly epic fight, and an attempt for Blizzard to look at adding an extra layer of combat through moving vertically. Tier 11 was just hard overall though, and I'm not just trying to hype it up or be like, oh, you know, it was sure tough back then. Here are a few words from Paragon after having defeated Sinestra. All in all, this tier of raiding, in my opinion, has been the hardest tier of raiding overall. There haven't been many pushover bosses on heroic difficulty, there hasn't been the time gating, there hasn't been any attunements and such. It's just been one big, absolutely brutal grind. Tier 12 was the Firelands. Another fantastic tier in my opinion, gave us the Molten Front dailies, which we can talk about soon, new mounts, new challenges, and that one really annoying achievement at Major Domo that still takes effort even today. Once again, I feel this was a very successful raiding tier. Ragnaros got legs and lived for 14 days. 14 days doesn't sound like much, but in that time Paragon and many other guilds put in over 500 plus attempts in wipes, in a fight that could last between 15 to 20 minutes long. With Paragon even claiming themselves, we've never put as much effort into a kill as we did now down in Heroic Ragnaros. Once again, another exceptionally hard boss that was highly, tightly tuned, a real challenge for the top end players. Which brings us to Dragon Soul Tier 13. This is where things kind of fell down a bit for Cataclysm in my opinion. Dragon Soul was when something new was brought into the game as well, something highly controversial and criticised to this day, which we're going to be touching in the criticisms of Cataclysm. And this raid was the big culmination of the expansion where we finally take out Deathwing. I'm going to read you off what Ghostcrawler had to say about the fight, okay? Because on paper, I'm totally sold. This sounds amazing. So he says, oh, the encounter's really, really cool. First of all, it's split into 2 fights. So boss 7 is Deathwing, and then boss 8 is also Deathwing. In fight 7, you parachute off a gunship onto Deathwing's back as he's flying from Dragonblight towards the Maelstrom. You have to pry these armor plates off his back and then fight off corrupted blood that comes out, all the while Deathwing himself is trying to shake you off his back, and he's going to do barrel rolls and things to try and dislodge you like the little parasite you are because he's so big. Final Deathwing fight is really amazing. He crashes into the Maelstrom and then kind of emerges out of it again, and he's so big he's taking up the whole area. Players hop around these little islands in the Maelstrom. So on the first island they might be fighting one of his tentacles, then they have to fly to the next island, now they're fighting a leg, and so on and so forth. You get the idea, right? But it sounds epic, it sounds huge, large scale, something worthy of this enemy that's been built up through the whole expansion. But players just didn't really see it like that, or didn't really feel that in the actual game. People didn't feel as though they were fighting Deathwing. People saw it more as giving him a back rub and then a manicure, and that was kind of a letdown at the end of the tier. On top of this, the world first race for this tier didn't go to plan due to LFR exploits, where players were able to re-queue and
this is Meta Surgeon Agrippa 723 Theta speaking.
System,
how can I
leading to
assist you,
temporary bans for many of the top players in guilds like Method or Paragon.
Your
Paragon
request
up to
cannot
this
be
point have
granted.
been leading the
I
race
suggest
for the
that you seek
entirety of
medical
Cataclysm,
assistance
and
elsewhere.
we're very much looking to take a clean sweep
Allow
in
me to
tier 13.
clarify.
And you might think
The
it's dumb
Magos
exploiting
biologist
for
with the
LFR
required
gear though,
skill
right?
set
Surely
is
tier 4
unavailable.
heroic gear was better. Yes, it
Our
was better,
brethren have been
mostly.
studying an
Apart from the
epidemic on
tanking
the
tier
St.
gear,
Abelard
which had
relay
insane
station.
4-set bonuses, specifically for Death Knights and especially Warriors. This turned tanking cooldowns into entire raid cooldowns. 50% of either the effect of Vampiric Blood or Shield Wall on the entire raid. This meant either the entire raid just got more health and stronger heals, or a flat 20% damage reduction. This is why the top guilds wanted these new set bonuses ASAP. But this wasn't the only issue top guilds would face in Dragon Soul. When they got to the Spine of Deathwind fight, a fight that was pretty much agreed that was harder than the last boss itself, which is just another letdown to Deathwing's legacy here. The idea behind the fight is that you build up these elementals, then kill them next to an armor plate.
So they objected, and I congratulate the Senate Democrats.
Speaker Pelosi, what are you going to share with us from your home?
Chocolate candy.
Thousands have been forced to wait for hours at food banks all across the country.
This is
oh my
chocolate, and then we have some other chocolate here. We just got it restocked with the ice cream.
You don't want to eat up everything all at one time.
I can't do it much longer. I'm trying so hard.
We were, shall we say, enjoying.
Having to admit that, yeah, we're starving, and
I like it better than anything else.
Taping this segment, there are 22 million people out of work.
This specific program is about stopping job losses today.
Other people in our family look for some other flavors.
Right now, it's survival mode. You don't know where that next something else is going to come from.
I don't know what I would have done if ice cream were not invented. I just wonder.
The Democratic Party is so corrupt, so unbelievably corrupt and out of touch that a guy who shits on a golden toilet gets to make fun of them for being out of touch. And it lands. And it lands. Do you want to know why you have Donald Trump? Because he gets to run against Nancy Pelosi, one of the most corrupt criminals in the history of our government. Not only complicit in war crimes, but complicit in the generational screwing of workers and families. That's why Trump is elected. Not because Bernie bros are just so petulant. It's because of this. It's because when the time came to help people, Nancy Pelosi acted like she was Herbert Hoover. On purpose. And screwed you. And AOC, every damn Democrat, went along with it, including Bernie Sanders. They're worthless. They're absolutely worthless. Here's what Danny Haiphong says at the Black Agenda report. He says, Trump understands power. Power is the ability to win the public relations battle because your opponent is invested in the same war as you, but you can't say so without losing the capacity to keep the left loyal to corporatism. Power is recognizing your opponent's weakness and striking. So he's pointing out that Nancy Pelosi's actually playing the same game as Trump. She can't say so. So she's handcuffed. Trump can't say the game he's playing. She can't. If she does, she'll risk losing the left. They won't go to loyal corporatism anymore. So that's just great. That's exactly right. So if you want to know why you're getting Trump, it's because of the corruption of the Democratic Party. I've been saying this since I read Listen Liberal. This isn't even debatable. You didn't get Trump because of Jill Stein or Russia. You moron on purpose. You didn't get Trump because of Susan Sarandon or jagoff comedians on YouTube. You got Trump because of the unbridled and transparent corruption in the Democratic Party. As Chris had just said, they cheat right in front of you. They steal right out in the open now. They don't even hide it. And Bernie goes along with it, 96-0 in the Senate, a generational screwing of America.
The glory of the
Bernie was told to go along with it, and he went along with it. Hey, this is the part where I tell you where our live shows are, but there aren't any. And then I would tell you to go join our premium, but nobody has a fucking job. So why don't you just enjoy the video?
Isn't that good?
Another thing that I want to get into, and I think this is going to be unpopular with a lot of folks, is the coverage of the COVID disaster and how it's intersecting with coverage of Trump in ways that I'm not so sure are good. Just to take one example is the way that we're reporting on a drug like hydroxychloroquine, and it's gotten so over the top. And let's just take some examples before we get into the issue. I don't know how you feel about this, but I think this is something that's worth talking about. So, for instance, last week, the Ohio State Representative Tavia Golonsky threatened to take Trump to report Trump to The Hague over his hydroxychloroquine referral, suggesting that this is a crime against humanity. And then we had, Mika Brzezinski in this amazing clip from where she's having a dialogue with Joe about the hydroxychloroquine thing. And Dan, if we could look at this videotape.
Why is MSNBC, why is CNN, why is Fox, why is any network running these press conferences where he keeps talking about an unproven drug that might work for malaria, might work for lupus, doesn't work for this?
Joe, Dr. Fauci wasn't allowed to talk about what he feels is important to say about this drug that the president keeps pushing. A lot of people would say, follow the money. There's got to be some sort of financial tie to someone somewhere that has the president pushing this repeatedly.
That clip kind of reminds me a lot of the Russiagate stuff, right? Where let's take fact A and then immediately speculate about thing B that we have absolutely no evidence for, but let's just throw it out there anyway. But the larger point, and I did a little thought experiment earlier this week where I just started calling people in other countries to ask, what's the prevailing view about hydroxychloroquine in France, in England, in Germany, in places like that, in places where Donald Trump is not the prevailing factor in press coverage. And I had one guy who was a molecular biologist in England saying, when he dealt with Americans, it's like, show me a person who has an opinion about Donald Trump and I'll tell you what that person's view on hydroxychloroquine is. Right. And this is something that's starting to happen in the media, which is that we're reverse engineering how we think about a whole series of issues. Because if Donald Trump says X, then Y must be true. Yeah. Let me make clear, I am not endorsing hydroxychloroquine by any means. Or Donald Trump. I just think that this is, in the middle of a situation like this, what ends up happening is that people feel so strongly about the Trump issue that we end up with, all this sort of groupthink that goes on with a series of other issues. And the science on hydroxychloroquine is mixed. There's some anecdotal evidence. There's a couple of studies in France, one that's like more dubious than the other. But one of the main proponents in France is a pretty significant scientist over there, and there are problems with the study. But there are also lots of doctors who are co-signing the study. That doesn't mean that it's proven, and that he's being responsible by talking about it. But you see what I'm getting
of course. It's like the Syria thing too. Like whatever he does is bad in it per se, or sui generis. Is that what's the Latin thing?
I'm not sure.
Prima facie, whatever. Ex post facto. No, I know it's not that one. But no, it's actually extremely dangerous. The left cannot be. Our politics cannot be responding to Trump and doing the exact opposite of what Trump does, because Trump will do some good things, maybe for the wrong reasons, but just statistically, not every single decision he makes is going to be bad. And you don't have to like Trump to notice that. That's what's so frustrating, is that it's like the most powerless, neutered opposition comes from the people whose entire understanding of opposition is whatever Trump does, we do the opposite of.
Yeah, and it's not like people don't notice the tenor of this kind of coverage, and it just makes it leaves people less confident in what the press has to say about something at a moment when we desperately need the press to be functioning, specifically on this level of like factuality, like what does this drug work or does it not work, right? Like you can't make hydroxychloroquine a Trump referendum. You have to make it something that you're just, okay, what are the studies? What does it say? Like, who cares what Trump says, about that? And if we end up doing that about the next drugs that are in the pipeline, whether it's hydroxycitidine or whatever the next thing is, that's going to be a problem. If Trump says something about ventilators. You know, we've already seen with this crisis that there's a problem, which is that groupthink quickly coalesces around, and people are so angry and frustrated about this issue that they get emotional about responding to certain things. But we're finding out already that like a lot of the things that we thought about this disease are wrong. The doctors go back and forth. Do ventilators actually work? You know, like people who are put on ventilators, their outcomes are almost uniformly bad. At one point, they thought the disease doesn't actually work that way, so that maybe the ventilators aren't the appropriate treatment. Now some people are going back to thinking that actually they do work, but you can't get emotional about this. You have to just wait to see how it plays out and cover it how it comes, and try as best as possible to divorce it from the politics, because people are just they're desperate for information more than anything, you know.
Well, it's ironic because they're acting the way that they critique Trump for acting, which is not intellectual, not empirical, kind of fly by the seat of your pants, shooting from the hip, emotional, irrational thought. And that's what Trump does do a lot, and then they're kind of doing it in a weird way. Of course, I'm still haunted by the way that DNC and Joe Biden's campaign ignored the CDC recommendation, which also puts them in that kind of Trumpian anti-science camp. And, I keep thinking about Russiagate because, and something you said early on, Matt, in our show was that, there were so many ways that you could respond to Trump, and the media, actually you may have said this on my show before we started doing the show, the media had so many choices of how to respond to Trump, and they responded in the way that totally played into his hand. They walked into his trap because he's talked about how fake the media was and how much they kind of had it out for him. And Trump did some egregious things in terms of not doing certain, he failed to do a lot of things when it comes to pandemics, and he fired people, and he didn't listen to warnings, and he did do terrible things.
Or the travel ban. I mean, there's a million things you could point to.
But I mean, just for this one, let's just sticking on Corona,
sure.
He has done, and we should probably go over this. I have someone on to tell us all the things that he did that were wrong, but that should have stood out as impeachable, or should have stood out as egregious. And it didn't, because the news was constantly talking about Russia and Russiagate, and they are like the boy who cried wolf, and they wasted their wad on that story that was not that morally significant, was not going to bring him down. It was kind of like a self-indulgent tantrum that maybe people thought, based on their dinner parties, was actually going to bring him down. But had no idea how the rest of the country, outside of their, coastal elites, not to sound like Rush Limbaugh or something, saw it. And I'm really angry because it's what he did earlier with Corona should have been a uniquely criticized thing. It should have stood out, and it hasn't, and it didn't, in part because there was so much hysteria around and conspiracy theorizing around.
Well, we were all collectively wasting the time of the entire country with that ridiculous Ukraine-gate situation.
Russiagate, then Ukraine-gate, right? Yeah.
And nobody talks about that now. And there are things that Trump is doing, and I think we can get into this with our guests too, in terms of talking about reopening the country on May 1st and how he has the authority to do that. Some of that stuff is crazy, and I am really worried about that. What I really worry about is we're still unable to get out of the financial paradigm of our business is telling people news about Trump bad news about Trump, and they're unable to decouple that from how we cover the crisis. And we have to, you know what I mean? We desperately need the information decoupled from all this bullshit. So
you should write something on that, how it's actually a public health risk to be so wedded to automatically rejecting whatever Trump says.
Right. Yeah. We have to not worry about Trump. I mean, there's you can definitely do the reporting on his response, but let's
that
look at
that shouldn't determine our take on something.
Right, and you can also see it in the way that the numbers have been reported, right? Because Trump obviously has an interest in saying that the disease isn't as bad, or the impact isn't going to be as bad as we thought. And then so what you're seeing on the other side is that there's this glee when, like, for instance, when the United States overtook China for the most deaths, there was almost like this I told you so tenor to the news coverage. And like, what's that about? Like, are we happy now that we have the most deaths in the world? Like, is that something that we're really
American
proud of?
Exceptionalism.
Right, yeah. There was all those sarcastic comments about how this is American exceptionalism now. And it reminded me of like, we have to brace ourselves for the bad news that, the Mueller investigation is gonna turn out that he's not a Russian spy. Like that's bad news,
Right, exactly,
I don't want to go on too much about this because Trump, there are things about this that are completely nuts and but that aspect of it is
no, and he's psychotic. He's like, I have it in my head. That's where it comes from. It's my head. I just think it. Like he's insane, and but.
This episode of Internet Today is brought to you by Manscaped.
Uh-oh, another member of the Rogues Gallery from this show might be in trouble. Uh-oh. Turns out Kim Jong-un might be dying. Or maybe not, who knows? At the very least, there are some pretty suspicious things going on over in North Korea, but that's also not out of the norm either, so let's just go through what's being reported from multiple angles. On Monday this week, CNN reported through an anonymous government official and backed up by a second source apparently that, quote, the U.S. is monitoring intelligence that suggests North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, is in grave danger after undergoing a previous surgery.
Okay, so yeah, this also was seemingly backed up by the fact that Kim Jong-un was mysteriously absent for the celebration of his grandfather's birthday a few days prior. It's a pretty big day over there.
Yeah.
Nor has he been seen or filmed publicly for around 10 days. And according to articles from South Korean news outlet Daily NK, which monitors news from North Korea, Glorious Leader apparently went under the knife for heart surgery thanks to his excessive smoking, obesity, and, as they put it, overwork.
No, he was just socially distancing. That's why he hasn't been seen for 10 days. He's doing a really good job.
Based on like the actual most recent footage, I'm like, damn, I hadn't been paying attention. Kim Jong-un is fucking huge. He is gigantic.
Yeah.
Anyway, we would imagine it's probably the smoking and obesity.
Not the overwork.
Not the overwork, but who knows?
Yeah.
We don't know a lot about what happens there.
Exactly. Now, here's where things get a little bit on the other side. Like Elliot said, nobody really knows what's going on in North Korea.
Yeah, and it's important to note that with North Korea and with other countries like Cuba, a lot of the information you get are just straight up, it's like CIA propaganda.
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind.
Now, U.S. officials as well as South Korean sources have so far refused to go on record to confirm what's currently being reported. And some South Korean government officials, as well as officials from the Chinese Communist Party, have pretty much denied the report entirely. The South Korean officials, they stated, quote, we have no information to confirm regarding rumors. Also, no unusual developments have been detected inside North Korea. And the source from CCP just straight up said that they don't think he's critically ill.
Okay.
I mean, also not really the most reliable sources, I guess, so...
They have an interesting relationship, China and North Korea. The North Koreans, they're very dependent on China, and China is just sort of this thing they inherited, and they're like, this fucking guy. Well, whatever. Just you deal with your shit. Leave us the fuck out of it. We'll send tourists over sometime.
As for what we think, I mean, Kim Jong-un, he's definitely really, really, really fat, and he's a total piece of shit. So it wouldn't surprise us at all that he'd be in very bad shape, especially after a life-saving surgery.
Yeah, there was all those stories that seemed pretty believable about him, like eating, dangerous amounts of cheese. Drinking cognac all day long. Just
smoking nonstop.
Yeah.
When I saw the news, when it popped up last night, it was like, Kim Jong-un is possibly in grave danger, could die. I went, oh my God, I hope he dies.
Yeah. Smoking too many big doinks out in Amish.
Yeah.
R.I.P. King Dave. Anyway, I don't know, Kim Jong-un, sorry.
Yeah. Kim Jong is ill.
Yeah, Kim Jong-un is,
Inquisitor,
I don't know, he
if
probably
you don't
won't die.
mind me
Because
asking,
it's cursed. Nothing
why
good ever
are you
happens.
so
But
sure
even if he does
this
fully
pious
recover,
soul could help your
look at him. He's going to
investigation?
struggle through his 40s. Probably won't make it past his 50s. Also, we'll probably never know the actual truth of what's going on over there until he finally does die. Will the country be better off after? Or worse? I mean, his fucking dad was, by most estimates, dead for like at least a month before they even like acknowledged it.
Yeah.
Maybe even longer. So yeah, I don't know. Also, there's a conspiracy theory that Nelson Mandela was dead for like 6 months before they unveiled that. Worth looking into. Fun.
Yeah,
fun,
real
worth
fun
exploring.
conspiracies. Yeah.
Anyway, we can only assume that it would be his sister Kim Yo Jong. Hey, a real girl boss taking over North Korea.
Yeah, finally, her time.
Yeah. That's right, ladies. I mean, she doesn't have the best track record either. And, is at least as bad, if not worse, than her brother. But like we said, smash that glass ceiling.
Yeah.
It's ladies' night in North Korea. But yeah, we hope he dies.
Yes, exactly. Now, over in corrupt American news, though, it turns out that whole stimulus package that was designed to help smaller businesses weather the storm has, surprise, been taken advantage of by a bunch of companies who any normal person out there wouldn't consider small businesses. Now, according to a recent report on Forbes, based on filings from the Securities and Exchange Commission, quote, there were 71 publicly traded companies that received funding from the Small Business Administration's $349 billion Emergency Paycheck Protection Program before the money ran out last week.
Oh, yeah, so arguably the most famous company to receive STIM money from this program was Shake Shack, a company that's worth, they reported, $1.6 billion.
And to be fair, very delicious. Maybe not as good as In-N-Out, but still
In-N-Out is better by every metric, but I enjoy Shake Shack from time to time.
Sure.
Flame me in the comments, whatever. Yeah, so Shake Shack was rewarded a $10 million loan for paycheck protection. Now, why? Well, in order to qualify for the Paycheck Protection Program, you have to have less than 500 employees. That's weird.
Yeah.
Shake Shack had over 7,500 employees at the end of last year. And yeah, they've obviously laid off or furloughed a decent amount of people because of the coronavirus, but they definitely have way, way more people working for them than less than 500
Yeah,
that's
it's
needed
safe to
to actually qualify for the loan. So that's weird. They were approved, though, because they were able to claim that they qualified because they don't employ over 500 people at any one of their single locations. So,
yeah, the old loophole.
We might not be a small business, but all of our locations are small businesses.
But they all come together like a Power Ranger.
Yeah.
They all team up to become a Megazord. And but once they're apart, it's different. You see. Yeah. Anyways, boom, got you, federal government, you dumbasses. Give us that fucking money. The thing is, with all this, any company that's worth this much money,
it's inconsequential.
But also, every little bit helps. But also, they're gonna, as soon as this stimulus was announced, every single one of these companies had lawyers and accountants on top of this being like, all right, let's figure out how we get a little slice of this. There's got to be a way. And this whole, well, we don't have 500 employees.
It has been in the possession of my family since my ancestor
So yes,
received
they
the
did
warrant
get
of
their
trade.
$10 million loan. Again, would seem inconsequential to a company like this,
when the
but
inquisitorial purge
money's money, I
destroyed
guess.
the
And this
clan
was a
headquarters.
forgivable loan, meaning that if they did use it to offset the burden of payroll, even though they're, by doing that, offsetting money elsewhere and saving it, they wouldn't have to pay this loan back because it was going to pay for employees. Luckily, the public thought this was absolutely ridiculous, and once stories started circulating, the pressure was building on them to give the money back. And finally, they announced this past Sunday that they would be returning the money to the government in full. We're sorry. But on top of this, they should probably be fined for what they did, because I'm sure that a lot of work went into this, or none at all. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of oversight. Anyways, this is just one of a bunch of companies that almost certainly shouldn't have qualified for funding, because at face value, you'd assume this money would be geared towards actual small businesses whose margins are pretty thin, in order for those businesses to keep people on payroll and keep the economy going.
Yes. And yeah, this is the case for the majority of the companies that filed for help, which is good. But as you were made aware by the beginning of this story, the budget for this program, it's already gone because of how many companies signed up and received loans.
Wasn't like Ruth Chris got one as well?
Yeah, Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Noted small business, Ruth Chris Steakhouse. Yeah, so far it's looking like the program is putting a Band-Aid on a leak instead of slapping some flex tape on it, as they should be.
Flex tape probably filed for some of this money too, I would imagine.
Well, I could see them having under 500 employees.
That's true.
Anyways, it's time to stimulate our small business. Do we Did we get a loan?
No, we did not get a loan. We don't have employees. We probably could have filed for ourselves, but that would be disingenuous.
It would.
So we didn't do it.
Yeah.
We didn't take any government money nor request it. Instead, we got our money from Manscaped.
That's right. You might be a bit nervous about giving yourself a haircut up there.
Unless you're shaving it off completely.
Yeah, but you no longer have to be nervous about keeping things trimmed down there, thanks to Manscaped.
Manscaped is the only men's brand dedicated to below the waist. If you live in a state that is still taking things seriously, you're probably bored. And, you know, maybe you're starting to let some things go down there. Well, why not make manscaping part of your routine? Just don't try to tackle this task without the right tools, or you may end up doing more harm than good. Use the products from Manscaped instead.
Manscaped is forever changing the grooming game with their Perfect Package 3.0. The Perfect Package 3.0 kit comes with the new and improved Lawnmower 3.0. It's waterproof, cordless, it's a body trimmer, and a ton of other liquid formulations are also in the kit to round out your manscaping routine. This third generation trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to prevent manscaping accidents. Millions of balls are about to be nick-free thanks to Manscaped's advanced skin-safe technology.
Yeah, inside the Perfect Package, you'll also find the Manscaped Crop Preserver. That's an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. They are going to look as smooth as eggs and smell twice as good. Anyway, subscribe to the Perfect Package and you'll also get a new replacement blade refill for your lawnmower trimmer delivered to your door every 3 months. And that makes sure your trimmer stays fresh and clean. And for a limited time, subscribers get not 1, but 2 free gifts. The Shed Travel Bag, which is a $39 value, and the patented high-performance anti-chafing Manscaped boxer briefs. I've worn them many times, probably once a week, and they feel great.
No chafing over here.
No chafing that I've noticed. Get 20% off, and you'll get free shipping with our code TODAYDAILY20, all one word, at manscaped.com. That is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com. Just use code TODAYDAILY20. Make playing with your balls the best part of your day.
All right, moving on. It did not take long at all for Tom Brady to fully embrace the Florida man persona after officially leaving New England behind to sign on as quarterback for the 2003 Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Go Bucs!
Now, first it was his weirdo-ass trademarks that he filed for. He filed these almost immediately. They included terms like Tampa Bay and Tampa Brady.
Jesus.
And now he's already had his first run-in with the law.
Sort of, yeah. You see, as dumb as Florida is in a lot of ways during this pandemic, at the very least, some of their parks are still closed to the public.
You're in the archives,
not that's really stopping anyone.
Try to find a cogitator that can grant you
DeSantis
access
didn't really
to the
put any
data
fines in
vaults.
place for any of that.
Yeah.
Also, more near my home area,
This is the central
more
cogitator
beaches
of the
opening up with
station.
no restrictions.
If this
no
Magus
restrictions.
biology
Restrictions.
Anyways, yeah, these rules, they're not really stopping anyone, let alone an all-star athlete who needs to stay
I
in
missed
top
the Magus
physical
biologist
form
on
as
the
he spends
station.
the rest of his
I
years
logged the
playing
3
for the
potential
Bucs.
destinations.
So yeah, he was actually caught working out in a local Tampa Bay area park. And initial reports, they said that he was given a citation for breaking the law put in place by Governor DeSantis' stay-at-home order. Only Governor DeSantis, his stay-at-home order was complete bullshit from the beginning. And this was Tom Brady also, so you don't go around finding Tom Brady. The truth here is that the park staff, they just told him to leave. Get out of here, Tom Brady.
Wow, what story, Mark.
That was that.
Now, we can only assume that they probably broke social distancing guidelines by asking for autographs and stuff. But
Yeah.
the real question here is, why the fuck does Tom Brady need to go to a park to work out? His contract with Tampa Bay is worth a reported $50 million alone. He's currently staying in a gigantic mansion that's apparently owned by Derek Jeter, so why can't he just have the Buccaneers drive an entire gym over and have it installed in one of the many, many rooms in his big ol' house?
Yes, it's strange that he would go work out in public. He wanted to be seen.
He's an exhibitionist.
Yeah, he's a extrovert. I've had enough with my wife and my kids. I gotta go be seen by the people, damn it. Oh, also, side note, it was also announced today that Rob Gronkowski has also signed to the Buccaneers. And since I grew up in the Tampa Bay area, you know, until I was about 19, that does mean there is absolutely no shame in going back to being a Bucs fan, right? I mean, I hated Tom Brady and the Gronk when they were in New England, but Bucko Bruce coming together, I think it's time for a change. Also, the new LA Rams logo looks like shit. So what better time than now? If there is a football season this year at all. Yeah, so that's also the thing. You see the new Chargers uniforms?
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
They look good. Everyone's making the Rams look like shit.
Yeah.
Like, what a terrible, terrible design.
Yeah.
It's bad.
Anyway, speaking of sports, attempting to salvage whatever seasons they can this year, looks like Major League Baseball is going to attempt to get started in the somewhat near future, although it's not looking like it's going to go back to normal.
Yeah.
But hey, at least they're trying something, I guess.
And keeping away from other people.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to infect your players or put them at risk, do it somewhere else, away from the rest of us.
So according to CBS Sports, who spoke with multiple sources from within the league, the MLB is floating the idea of having 3 separate hubs for baseball: Florida, Arizona, and Texas.
Yeah.
Now, this would make a lot of sense for 2 big reasons. There are already spring training hubs, and those 3 states they just no longer seem to give a shit about quarantine,
Yeah.
so it should be pretty easy to get the ball rolling.
It's funny how that kind of worked out, that that's where spring training is for a lot of teams.
Time
and
for
also
Brian Kemp to pull a few more levers and be like, you know what? Why don't you come down to Atlanta? There's no rules here.
Yeah, it's fine.
In Atlanta, if you cough on someone, a cop has to give you $5. How about that?
Yeah, and he gives you a whole drum of oil.
Yep.
Anyways, the MLB, they would be taking precautions if the plan went ahead with everything that they're looking at. They said that, quote, the clubs would then make use of the local, major, and minor league or spring training facilities and play regular season games behind closed doors without fans. They added that ballparks in St. Petersburg, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, and Arlington, Texas, they have roofs, retractable or otherwise, that would safeguard against rainouts and other extreme weather, allowing for multiple games to be hosted at those sites per day. So,
okay.
Yeah, just a rotating cast of games in the
Baseball Island.
Listen, at this point, I'm for it.
Yeah, okay.
iRacing is already whittling away all of the pro drivers. They've been banished because they can't keep their mouths shut. I think this week's went okay, except one of the drivers was racing in a giraffe costume the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't know. And he also may have caused a crash on purpose.
Well, at least he didn't say the N-word.
True. All things considered, much better. So yes, baseball coming back. That would be fun. Though, the plans that they have in place, not very happy with the players though, because they would have to keep isolated.
Yeah.
Meaning, they would just be in contact with other players and staff and wouldn't be able to physically visit with friends or family. That's obviously pissed a lot of players off, and they are pushing back on this idea.
That's understandable. Now, over in real sports news, esports.
Yeah.
It looks like Infinity Ward has some pretty good updates coming down the pipeline for Modern Warfare and the Warzone mode in it. According to a recent post, which included updates to general security, they also announced that in addition to your ability to report cheaters during the game, you'll also be able to report players during kill cam and spectate modes as well. They'll also be providing players with the satisfaction that their reports are actually doing some good, because they will be confirming in-game that someone you reported for cheating was actually banned.
That's always fun. Like on Twitter specifically, if you report someone, it's like, by the way, we
received your report and
we took action. I think they do this in Overwatch as well. But it is cool that like in spectate mode, you can just kind of be a police officer after you've been killed.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch everyone, make sure I can.
The only good kind of cop. Video game cop.
Yeah, all cops are bastards except for the ones that are monitoring Modern Warfare.
Yeah.
Anyways, on top of all of that, it comes the best possible idea for the current cheaters situation in their game. Moving forward, they'll be updating the game's matchmaking so that players that have been confirmed to be cheating will literally have to face off against each other, which is hilarious. And we seriously hope that they figure out a way to broadcast these matches on Twitch or something, because what fun it would be watching a full Warzone match filled with people who were cheating the entire time.
Yeah, it's like the steroid Olympics that we've all dreamed about.
It's a real losers bracket because they're fucking losers. Quit ruining the game.
Cut it out.
So yeah, it's pretty entertaining.
I don't think I've encountered any cheaters in any
Not that
games.
you know of. I saw a bunch of videos of it in Warzone, and it was very infuriating.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like, there's guys with like aimbots and shit like that.
And I mean, it's like classic cheating stuff. Like I've seen people that can look behind walls and stuff like people making shots that are
wall hacks.
Impossible.
Oh, well, now that you mention it, I'm pretty sure every time I've died, it's been because of cheaters.
Yeah, as a top tier gamer who drinks G Fuel, I should never lose.
Yep.
So.
Oh, also, speaking of video games, check out this boomer getting all pissed for being an idiot. Former President George W. Bush's White House press secretary made an idiot out of himself on Twitter this week when he blamed China and not himself for this ridiculously shitty knockoff PS4 controller.
Yeah.
He even posted photos of it which show off a controller so bootleg that no actual gamer with their salt would ever purchase it. In the tweet, he said, "Another reason to distrust China. We bought my kids a PS4 and then got a second controller from Amazon. The controller was made in China, of course, and it doesn't work. It never worked. It's junk."
Now, the photos he included show what, yeah, that resembles a PS4 controller. But upon closer inspection, this looks like something that Soulja Boy would have sold on his web store for one of his 1001 games included consoles. The PlayStation logo where you can hit it to go home or whatever, it just says P4 on it. Amazing. And instead of the familiar shapes on the buttons, it's literally a bunch of L's, almost as if it was created to mock the person who purchased. Yeah, and we tried pretty hard to find the Amazon listing for the one that he got, and I think I actually found it. Now, this controller, it is about half the price of a normal PS4 controller, so he got it because it's cheap. Yeah, and literally, the first Q&A on the page, the question is this a fake? And the answer is, yes, it is a fake. And this Q&A thing was posted well before this tweet.
I mean, this guy's got money.
He certainly does.
Buy your fucking kids a working controller, you cheap ass.
Yeah.
God damn.
At the very least, a Mad Catz, because at least then you can like return it.
You got what you paid for.
Exactly. Don't blame China. China gave you the product that you paid for.
They did.
Anyways, we did a very long stream, extremely long stream yesterday because we were high and forgot the time was real. We did a 420 stream with Phil Larigo. We played a bunch of For the King, and then just devolved into us playing poker again.
Yeah.
So check out that stream, and also check out the most recent episode of Weekly Weird News. And we'll see you very soon for some more Tech News Day. Again, with Phil Larigo.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Boom, boom. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We're live here from the Valley with the artist formerly known as the Amazing Atheist. Hello. Imagine if I just started talking like that, no explanation. I just kept it going for years. Everybody like, one day he's gonna drop it.
I kind of dropped it a little.
The Amazing Atheist, right?
Yeah. I mean, I still use it. I oscillate. I'm kind of trying to transition to just using my real name.
Well, the last time you were here, you talked about that, and that was, I think, 2 years ago. So this is slow.
It was a year and 3 months ago.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was January of 2016.
Why do I feel like it was so... My memory.
I don't know.
You know what? You know that Dunbar's number thing where you can only fit so many people in your brain?
Yeah.
And there's definitely that going on in my head, and then too much data. My hard drive is fucked. You know, if you get an old laptop and it keeps telling you have to delete some files because you're running out of space, and that's my brain.
Yeah. I mean, my brain is even worse because literally things I knew yesterday, I don't know today anymore.
Yeah.
Like, my memory is dog shit.
And you were just saying you haven't smoked pot in days.
Yeah. Not in days.
Interesting.
Days and days.
Days and days and days. I fucked up and had an edible last night. I did this, there's a show that my friend Jeremiah Watkins has, and it's like a make-em-up show. They calls it Stand Up on the Spot, where the audience will yell out, fried broccoli, like whatever, and you just have to rant on broccoli, like what your thoughts are. Try to get some comedy out of it, and occasionally, maybe 1 out of 10 subjects, it will actually yield a real bit that'll become a bit in your act. It's really kind of amazing when you put under pressure like that. So I said, what a good time to test the deep end of the pool and find out what these speed-weed edibles are all about. Fucked up.
Yeah.
Fucked up.
My brother had a panic attack on edibles just like a few days ago. My friend brought over some pot brownies, and he had one. He's not really used to edibles. Anyway, I go to bed. I'm laying down and watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine or some shit. I get a knock on the door like, TJ, hey man, can you come out here for a minute? I'm like, oh, okay. What the hell's this? I go out there, he's like, I'm really not feeling good, man. I think I'm having a heart attack, dude. I'm like, dude, you're probably just having a panic attack with too much weed. Okay, have this ever happened to you? Has this ever happened to you? I'm like, yeah, it's happened to me before. Just calm down. Your heart's racing, you feel disoriented and shit. And, I thought I was calming him down. I spent 30 minutes talking him down, but and it seemed like he was like, okay, yeah, I'm cool now. And then just all of a sudden, like, no, I feel terrible. We gotta go to the hospital. I gotta go to the hospital, dude. I gotta go to the fucking hospital. And I drove him over there. And I sat down in that fucking hospital waiting room. And there was like this fucking ad for Stanley Steamer. And there was this terrible jingle, and I'm like, it's like the worst jingle I've ever heard. It's not gonna get stuck in my head. And now to this day, call 1-800-STEAMER. Stanley Steamer, your certified cleaner. I'll be in bed at night, and that shit'll be in my head just over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, they have wizards that come up with those things. Even the ones that suck, they just get in there, you know?
Oh yeah, it's a terrible one. And then he gets out. They gave him some fucking Ativan.
You know what you can give him next time? Just give him some coffee. Coffee's like one of the best things.
Really?
Yeah. There's something about caffeine apparently that counteracts the effects of marijuana. When you're really high, they say just drink some coffee.
I'll have to do that next time.
Yeah.
If that happens.
Isn't that true? That is true, right?
That and a hot shower, I think, because
that's right.
Everyone's got their own fucking home remedy for this shit, I guess.
But here's the thing, like, once you've done it a few times, you realize, well, what the panic attack is essentially your brain taking an audit of all the things that are real and are real worries that you haven't been considering at all. And then they fly. Well, you're going to die today. Are you prepared? Like, what if it's tomorrow? Are you ready? Have you had a good life? Ah! What if someone close to you dies? You think you're going to be able to recover? Ah! Like, you just start thinking like really crazy shit, and it just makes you aware of those things. And then once it wears off, you reach that sort of neutral point again.
Well, he's a hypochondriac to begin with, so.
Oh, that's not good. You can't keep guys like that. You should know better.
Well, he's fine if he smokes it, but if he eats it,
it's a different thing.
It's different shit.
Totally different thing. So, your podcast was the big podcast that kind of sunk Milo. It was kind of a combination of mine and yours.
And I remember it was yours, it was me watching him on your show that led us to ask about that. Because I saw him on your show, and he was like God at the time. Because I remember at the time he was on our show, I told Paul, one of my co-hosts, like, Paul, this guy ain't no lightweight, and he's got a huge army of sycophants right now. If you get in a debate with him, if you lose, you're a total bitch. If you tie, you lose. If you win by a little, you lose. The only way you can actually beat him with his army of sycophants at this time is if you just demolish him. So don't even try.
You were concerned about this? Like this is like something you planned out in advance?
No, I mean, it wasn't really a plan. I just wanted to bring it up because I saw him on your show saying it. I'm like, that's very strange.
I kind of knew where he was coming from.
Sure.
Because I knew that he had experiences, like sexual experiences when he was younger.
Yeah.
And he was kind of, I think he was trying to trivialize them and turn them into humor.
Yeah, I mean, his way of dealing with it or whatever, say like, it was mutual between me and the priest. I was molested by a priest, but I was into it, so it was cool.
Well, he's like, I was the predator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he seduced the priest,
Yeah.
It's kind of hard for me to imagine a 13-year-old boy, no matter how flamboyantly gay or sexually aggressive, jumping the priest's bones or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it sort of gives you a better understanding of how this guy came to be who he is today and why he so relishes this role of being the contrarian and being this sort of very difficult to pigeonhole gay man who's very conservative but yet believes in man-boy love.
Look, this is if you go back and you read old articles he wrote for publications that he worked for in the past, there was a lot of stuff like, we're going to take on bullying on Twitter, and we need to make a safe space for people.
Loading data construct.
This is Milo, and now he's like the biggest troll.
Right.
I mean, we talked about Milo last time I was on your show, and you told me, you kind of put the seed in my brain like, he's kind of like fake. And the more I've looked into it, the more I have to question whether or not that shit with the priest even happened to begin with.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I don't really trust the shit that comes out of his mouth in terms of like face value.
Right.
And I think a lot of times when Milo tries to make a point, he doesn't necessarily make it by directly saying it. he tries to make it through like performance art, like when he went on Bill Maher, and you know he's doing this whole flamboyant gay conservative thing because he wants the liberal Bill Maher audience to be like boo boo, because it's like, ah, look what hypocrites, they say they accept gays, but the second you don't toe their line, what they obviously like is people who toe their line, not gay people.
Right.
I think that was the point he was trying to make. I thought it was funny too how Bill Maher the next day after Milo's scandal broke was like, I took him down. It was me.
Was he saying that?
Yeah, it was like, I took him down. It's like, dude, you compared it. You said he was the next Hitchens when he was on your show.
He really, wait a minute, he really said he took him down?
He said, I took him down.
No.
I took him down.
Oh, he's a fool. That's such a foolish thing to think. You know, what I think is what Milo does, a lot of it is performance art.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trolling, and it's a lot of very calculated stuff designed to sort of rile people up and get people active and get people to talk about him. I mean, that's the reason why he does this tour on colleges. I mean, why not do it in the lion's den if you want to get the roars? I mean, he's doing it like where he feels like this problem is the greatest.
Oh, he wants to stir that pot too, because he knows if he just does it in some club downtown, there's not going to be any protest. No one's going to give a shit.
They'll still protest, I'm
Maybe.
sure, but not like bringing it to their campus.
It won't be like what happened at Berkeley.
Yes. Yeah, what happened at Berkeley was just fucking insane. What's really insane is that, was it the mayor of San Francisco that was applauding the protests? Like, hey, fuckface, there was $100,000 worth of property damage. People were throwing chairs through Starbucks windows and lighting cop cars on fire. Like,
Yeah,
this ain't good.
There's been articles on like the Huffington. I almost made a video about this article on the Huffington Post actually that was basically like, violence is as valid a reaction to Trump as anything. It's like, wow, you're literally just advocating for violence, and you think you're so enlightened.
Yeah, it's...
Inquisitorial log, new entry. While attempting to